Episode number 1 of the Board Together Games podcast is made possible by our loving families and listeners like you. Thank you very much. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Board Together Games podcast. It's episode 1. Episode 1, we're at the beginning, the very beginning of this podcast. I am your host, David.
And I am Jerry.
And I'm Kathy.
And thank you guys for joining us. What do you say at the very first podcast? This is a podcast about board gaming, right? Gaming, board games, card games, and, you know, everybody says it, but it's also about people. It's about the people who are involved in this thing, and I guess it's a good time as any to just jump right into what this podcast is going to be about.
Yeah.
Right? We're in episode 1, so we might as well just kind of give you an idea of whether or not this is something that is going to be of interest to you.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So who are we? Who is Board Together Games? Well, Board Together Games is just kind of a little whim that I came up with a little while back. With my sister and my youngest son. We started putting YouTube videos out there where we did reviews and things like that about board games, and we also did some coverage on conventions and things that we liked and were excited about. We did that for a little while, and we had a lot of fun with it, and it just became really time-consuming, and we had to get away from it for a little while because of a move that my family went through. And we just kind of decided when things kind of settled down a little bit that this is the way we wanted to go. We wanted to jump back into this thing in a different way and try to reach people in just kind of a different manner. And that's kind of how Board Together Games, the podcast, was originated. So this podcast is going to aim to bring you relevant, entertaining board game content. And we're going to keep it family friendly and creator approved. And when I say creator, I mean the creator, right? This is going to be a faith-based podcast.
Yeah.
We are all Christians, and we are not going to really strive to preach or minister per se. You know, that's not really what we want to do. But we're also not going to shy away from who we are and what we believe. And we're going to do our best to tackle topics that Christian gamers face. So as I said a second ago, my name is David. I'm 46 years old, and I was a 38-year Catholic, and I got saved in the year 2011. And I have a beautiful wife and 2 amazing teenage boys, and the younger of those 2 is a gamer as well. We, as a family, we always played board games growing up, and we played, you know, your standard fare. We played Monopoly. We played a lot of Clue. And we played a ton of card games. That was a big deal for us. And as we got a little bit older, we kind of jumped into a lot of these party games that were kind of flooding the market there for a while. And honestly, it got to be, it got to a point where I just really couldn't stomach the same. It felt like it was the same thing over and over again. So in 2014, I decided, it was around Christmas time, and I said, you know, there's got to be something better out there, because we were just aching for something different, right? Something better, something new. And I did some research, and I found this whole subculture of hobby board gaming, and it just kind of blew me away. The rest is history, right? So just to kind of give you an idea of where I kind of find my wheelhouse, I gravitate more towards mid-weight strategy games, and I shy away from more of the theme-heavy, smack your opponent in the mouth type of games where, and I don't really care for the darker themed games, but I do play it all, and I think I have a way of pulling something good out of every game that I play. So that gives you a little bit about me. Now I'm going to hand it over to Kathy.
Okay, so I am Dave's sister, and I am 48 years old. I was a Catholic until I was about 16 or so, and I just stopped going to church, and I really wasn't interested in religion or anything like that for quite a while. When I was, about 2005, my husband lost his job, and he was out of work for almost a year. We were going through quite a bit emotionally and financially, and I was in search of something, and I didn't know what. And I was invited to go to church by 2 friends of ours, and it just happened to be the same church, and I didn't even know that they knew each other. And so we started going to church, and I was saved about a month and a half later in 2005. My husband was saved about a month after that, and the rest is history. I've been a Christian ever since, and I love the Lord, and happy to have a Savior. As far as games, as David said, we grew up playing a lot of board games, a lot of card games. It was very heavily influenced in our lives, and when he found the hobby board games, that just opened up a brand new world for me. I was so excited to see all the different things you could find on YouTube, lots of content creators out there that really kind of delved me into the hobby, and I just love hobby board games. And as far as what I enjoy playing, I kind of ride along the tails of David. He likes the midweight Euros, and so do I. And I also like co-op games, family-style games, things like that. I am definitely not a fan of the games that have a lot of combat. Take that. It's just not my style. I'll definitely try it and play it, but it's not something that I will gravitate towards.
Yeah. And honestly, there's exceptions to every rule, right? There are some theme-heavy games that I like. There's some take that games that Kathy likes. This is just more of an idea, just a way to kind of give you some sense of where we kind of feel at home, so you can get a sense for what kind of gamers we are. So speaking of gamers, right, we're going to introduce you now to the third member of our crew, and that is Jerry. Take it away.
Hey, yeah. So, name's Jerry, 39 years old, kind of a big kid, always have been. I am a highly competitive individual, so I've always loved, puzzles. I've always loved mind games. I've always loved being competitive. And even as a kid, we'd play Monopoly, and I'll be straight up, I cheated at Monopoly whenever I possibly could. I mean, if I could find a way to cheat, I would cheat at Monopoly. My brother and sister still talk about it to this day. But in the games where you really couldn't cheat, I thoroughly enjoyed the Strategos, the Risks, the Axis and Allies style games. We did play the Clues. We played all those other games as well. But I got to tell you, I mean, I loved those ones that were just a little deeper on the strategy. And I didn't mind if you were the take this, take that, the combat style ones. I mean, that's pretty much all Stratego is, and that's pretty much all Risk is. But I enjoyed those because it was kind of pitting your wits against somebody else and seeing how you could do. So yeah, for a while there, I kind of got away from them. We'd play the occasional game of Axis and Allies in college. They'd be like 12-hour games. Like we'd start in the morning, we'd finish sometime at 1 or 2 a.m. And fantastic, we loved it. But I just didn't really know there was other games. And then it was probably like 2005, 2006, my brother started inviting me over, and we started playing some games that he had, which was Settlers of Catan, and he had another one, I believe it was Dominion. And then from there, I figured out what Carcassonne was all about, and that just kind of dropped me into this whole nother niche, world of board games. Board games that at the time weren't very big. I mean, now you can find those in every box store, period. But those at the time, you could only find those at Miniature Market or your local board game group, or So it was pretty cool. Yeah, from there it's gotten kind of bad. I mean, I'm looking behind me. I've got like 70 games, and I don't even count some of them like the Monopolies and such. So yeah, it just keeps growing, and I love it, and it is an obsession of mine. A couple of years ago, it was 2 years ago, I had it on my heart to create a board game group, small group within our church, within our local church. And God was really pushing that on my heart. I couldn't shake it. Told my wife about it. She's like, go do it. I was like, that's going to be like a night a week for the rest of your life. You know that? And she's like, no, if you need to do it, you need to do it. And I was like, okay. And it was amazing.
It's good that you set that expectation, though, right?
I did. I tried to. I was like, hey, so just understand, this is a night a week. And at first, I think when we initially set it up, was I going to do every other week?
You had toyed with the idea of doing it every other week, yeah.
We did that first one, and I was like, this is happening every week.
Yeah.
And I told my wife, and she's just like, oh, okay. Well, on a positive note, I guess my house gets cleaned every week. I'm like, yes, it does. So,
find that silver lining.
Exactly. So she's been very gracious about that, and as many weeks as we can, we do meet. Things pop up, and it doesn't always happen, but it's been amazing. It's how I met Dave, and then through Dave, we met Kathy, and that group has just continued to evolve. There's been people who've come and go, but great relationships have been found through that. And I got to say, it's been a real blessing. And so obviously I am a follower of Jesus. That story is long and complicated. I grew up in the church, in a non-denominational church. That's all I've ever known. We went to Redemption Center in Ferguson when I was a kid. But I kind of fell away in college. Some things kind of shook my faith. I kind of questioned some of the idiosyncrasies that we've been taught, and they just didn't make logical sense. And so I kind of questioned them at that point. And we stayed away. And my wife and I got married, and we claimed to be Christians, but that was pretty much all we were. Until we had our own little emergency. We tried to have babies, and we had multiple miscarriages, and our hearts were breaking, and we didn't know where to go, and we were lost. And finally we decided we would adopt, and through a whirlwind, amazing process, like one miracle after another. And I don't know how else to explain it, because one thing happening in a row, that's just luck. That's just a good turn of fortune. Yeah. But when like 8 of those things happen in a row, that's God's hand working in your life.
Absolutely.
Period.
Amen.
And so through those things happening, we were able to adopt our kid, Evan, my oldest child, in 3 months. And then lo and behold, Megan gets pregnant 2 months later, and along comes Emma. And then from there, our other kids. And now I joke that I'm blessed abundantly, so much so that we got to make sure this doesn't happen again. So it's just, it just keeps happening. So we went from one to the extreme to the other. And through that, we found our faith again. And we had to redefine that faith. It couldn't be the faith that we had when we were children, because, you put away those things when you get older. But it's a stronger faith. My foundation cannot be shaken. I know what to believe in, and I know what is the truth, and Jesus is the truth. And so that's kind of where I come from. But swinging back, my favorite types of games are probably the Ameritrash. I'll be your Ameritrash expert here. And by expert, I just mean I love to play them. I also will fully admit that my weak point is knowing, the names of games and publishers, but I will be working on that. I enjoy any game with a lot of... What'd you say?
It's called show prep. That's what
show prep. Well, I love the cheat sheet. That's very helpful. It really is. I enjoy games with a lot of what would you guys call it? The negative interaction.
The take that.
I do.
Take that.
Yeah, I absolutely love that stuff, because it's a true like you versus me style, and I'm always up for that. But I also enjoy engine building, and I enjoy a good economic game. I enjoy anything. There have been very few games that I've walked away and said, I will never play that game again. Right, Dave?
There's only been a couple for me as well. They just happen to be ones you own. That's all.
I'm taking that a little personally, just so you know. So, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, it's fun. You talked about Monopoly. You and I have never played Monopoly together, and from what I hear, I don't want to play Monopoly with you.
You shouldn't play Monopoly with me.
That's what I've heard.
I've actually grown to hate that game. I'll be honest.
I'm to the point where I refuse to play it.
Yeah, it's not fun. There may be a time, in the right place, I might sit down and play Monopoly with somebody. I just don't know if I could see it through to completion. That's the issue.
One of our buddies would say that you're not playing the rules right then, because with all the rules, you can accelerate the game. But it was still a 3.5 hour game when he made me play that for his birthday. I know this buddy you speak of. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if I agree with him. I am playing the rules correctly. It's just, if everyone's playing the rules correctly, it takes forever.
And it still sucks. What?
It does. It does still suck. So that's a little bit about us. Hopefully that gives you an idea of the kind of podcast that you're going to be in for. And we hope that is something that's going to interest you. So hang on tight. So another question that a lot of people might be asking, or we asked ourselves right before we started this, is why now? Why do we want to do this podcast? And while there seem to be a lot of Christians anyway in the board game world, and there seems to be some Christians in the board game content creation field, but I just kind of felt like there weren't any that were really speaking to Christians directly. I don't know why that is, and it's really not something for me to try to figure out why, I don't think, but that was just kind of something that that was weighing on me a little bit, right? And honestly, being a Christian can kind of be a powder keg topic in today's world, right?
For sure.
Especially if you're outspoken about it and you're not ashamed to admit it, that kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
So, as we've all said, that's what we believe. This world, in all of our opinion, if I can speak for us all, is hurting.
Mm-hmm.
This world is broken. This world is fallen. That's what the word tells us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, due to what I feel is a direct effect of the entertainment and politics and media, surroundings and environment that we live in, we just kind of want to provide a positive voice through all of that. So I love content creation. I have for a while. I don't know why, because honestly, it really does. If you knew me in every other sense, you would hear that piece of my personality and things that I enjoy and think, really? That really doesn't fit with the rest of who you are. But, again, it's just one of those things that when you know it and you enjoy it, you can't explain it really. It's impressed upon your heart, right? And that's something that I was given, a talent. Hopefully it's a talent that I was given. And I do feel like I'm being led to do this. And I also believe God has work that he wants to do through this podcast. And I hope that doesn't come off as arrogant, because honestly, when these kinds of things come up, you kind of just let him take over. I don't really feel like we're doing this for us.
Agreed.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
At least
Yeah.
I don't feel that way. But I do feel like it's an important thing for us to be doing right now. I hope that doesn't sound arrogant, but that's just kind of how it is. And also, it just seemed like it would be fun, creating a podcast, putting it out there for people to listen to, hopefully touch some people and bring you a little bit of joy and entertainment. I feel like there's probably going to be a lot of roadblocks. You guys might agree with that as well.
We've already encountered quite a few, but we're
We have.
overcoming.
Yeah.
Yeah, scheduling and equipment and honestly, we all understand that most podcasts fail. It's kind of like running a restaurant, right? One out of every 10 makes it, something
Right.
like that. But hopefully we're going to be getting some people on board, and if you enjoy it, we're going to be counting on you to spread the word. Sometimes it's nice not to have to worry about language or content that can be abrasive.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we're excited about it. So there you go.
I've been reading Daniel, and actually I named one of my kids' middle names as Daniel. So
It's a great book.
It's a great book. There's a lot there. There's prophecy. There's all of that. But at the same time, Daniel gives a way to look at how to live in a non-Christian culture as a Christian. Granted, he wasn't a Christian. He was a monotheist, a Jew. But he lived that life, and he lived it well. And the way that he did that was that he absolutely integrated himself. Just like the letter that Jeremiah sends to the Jews who are in exile, he sends it to them. He says, hey, all these other prophets are telling you to stay separate, to curse the city that you're living in, to end up, to live separately and to not become a part of it. And he says, no, that's not what God's calling you to do. You're to become a part of that city. You're to live in that city. You're to take jobs in that city. You're to pray for that city.
Yeah.
That way you can raise those people up and you can be a light within that city. He said, but at the same time, you're not to become of that city.
Yeah.
You're not to, take on their pagan ways.
Exactly.
And that's that line that we walk as Christians. And whenever people have this imagery of Christians, they think of us as condemning. They think of us as hateful, which is, if you read anything that Jesus says through the entire Bible, that is the very opposite of what he wants us to do.
Yes.
It's the opposite of what Paul tells us to do.
Absolutely.
And so we need to learn, and we need to know that there are lights out there, there are voices out there that are going to be able to speak into this world and are going to be able to have fun time at board games and not worry about, oh no, this board game's about D&D and, are we going to go to hell because we're playing a D&D board game? No, we're not going to. We're going to enjoy ourselves, and I'm not going to become a demon at the same time. That's just not going to happen. So, but at the same time, we don't want to become so immersed in that culture that we become, we're no better or we're no different than that culture. We
Right.
want to show the light of love at the same time. And I think that's what we're trying to do with this podcast.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of times Christians get a bad rap because I think that people tend to come across Christians who aren't necessarily behaving in a way that reflects how they should, right? And
Yes.
what I mean by that is, as a Christian, you should have a full understanding that you are no different than anybody else. We are
Yes.
all sinners. We are all messed up.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So it's if somebody's judging you for what you've done wrong or what you're doing wrong, that's not what we're called to do either.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
ahead.
heard. I know. I was just saying. I heard Tim Keller preaching, and he was actually saying that if you are going to live truly the life that Christ calls you to, there should be an us and there should be no them.
Right.
As soon as you start talking about a them, then you're not talking the way that Christ would talk.
Yes.
I
Yes.
like
So-
that.
Yeah, we're no different. I mean, we
No,
we
no.
know that we're messed up. We know that we have our
No.
problems. I guess that if there's a difference to be pointed out there, it's that we understand those flaws. We repent for those flaws, and we do everything in our power to keep from falling into those same traps again.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean that's really it. That's the only difference.
Correct. And we just try to show love and realize that
Yes.
what we see in the world, but for God, we would be there as well,
Absolutely.
doing the same things. So there's no reason to judge. Yeah.
Right.
So that gives you a little bit of idea of where, the way we're going to approach this podcast. So enough about us and kind of our backgrounds. What say we talk a little bit about games? Because that's what we're here for, right?
Whoop, whoop.
Yeah.
So Kathy, have you been playing anything interesting lately?
Yes. The first game I'd like to talk about is Las Vegas by Rudiger Dorn. This is a game that is obviously not new, but it's kind of a staple with our family, especially. I play a lot of games with my parents, and probably twice a week at the least, sometimes more when they're in town. And we play this game mainly because it's easy. Easy to teach, easy to learn, and has really cool strategy. So it's a dice rolling game and area control. If you're not familiar with the game, essentially you have 6 locations that you will place your dice on, and
They're
you will
casinos.
casinos. And on your turn, you're going to roll your dice, all of them, and then you are going to look at the pips on each of the die faces and decide which number you're going to place onto one of the casinos, which coordinates with that number. And you will place all your dice on that casino with that number. If you roll 3 ones, you'll place the 3 ones on that casino number 1. And you will go around the table, and everyone will take a turn rolling all of the dice that they have left and placing their dice until all of the dice have been placed. Then you will essentially see who's got the area control, and whoever has the most dice will get money that has been placed on that casino for that round. And for the person in first place gets the highest denomination. The person in second place, if there is a second denomination, will get the second denomination, and so on. The one caveat to that is if the winners, in a tie, for instance, there's 2 people that have 4 dice on there and they're the area control, they do not win and they are canceled out. And then the person with the next highest amount of dice gets the first choice of denomination of money instead. It's really a lot of fun. There's a lot of oh no at the end, because when you have 1 die left and you roll, you have to place it where you're going to place it, and it can really mess up your whole strategy. But it's a load of fun. And of course, the objective is to have the most money at the end of the game. Lots of
Yeah,
fun.
this one's fantastic. It's lighter than stuff that we would typically play, but you and I have actually played this game together a lot. And yeah, it's everywhere I've ever introduced this game has gone over like gangbusters. I think, and I understand why the cap of the player count is 5. I think it's 2. Is it 2 to 5 or 3 to 5?
2 to 5.
I think it's 2 to 5. It's not as fun with 2. It definitely plays better with more people, I think. Would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. However, there is the 2-player caveat that you use the white dice and you split them up and you roll those as well, and you place those as well as like a dummy player.
Yeah.
And if that dummy wins, then they get the money too. So it kind of adds a little extra.
It
Interesting
does kind of
strategy in
help. It helps the 2-player, but yeah, I still think it's and that's okay, but I still think it's better with more people. And yeah, this is one, and it actually got re-released here not too long ago too, didn't it? I think it's a
I don't know. That's interesting. I didn't realize
I think
that.
it's a Target exclusive
Yeah,
now, and I think
it
it's
is.
called Vegas Dice as
Yeah.
opposed to Las
okay.
Vegas, I think. And it's in a cool square box, which I know some gamers freak out about that kind of thing. It's not the standard size box; it won't fit on my shelf. I'm only partially weird about that.
Is that your gamer voice? I just want to know if that's your nerd gamer voice.
Maybe it might be. Now that you say that, it might be. But no, Las Vegas is cool. Jerry, this is a perfect example. I don't typically like take that games. This is a take that game, but it's so quick and it's just a lot of fun.
Well, we played it once with our group, and I
Yeah.
gotta say, the gleam in your eye as you were messing people up tells me that you might
Whatever.
like take that games a little bit.
Whatever. Well, again,
It was there.
Wait a minute. I did say that as a caveat during the introductions that there's always exceptions to the rule, and this is
Absolutely.
definitely an exception to the rule. Jerry, what have you been playing?
You know, I gotta say, one of the ones I enjoyed, and I got to play it first at Geekway to the west, and that was Raccoon Tycoon. That's by Forbidden Games. It's a 2 to 5 player game. I like that game a lot. I had forgotten how much I love a good economy game that's not Monopoly. It actually reminds me with the whole moving resources up and down, and you're trying to buy towns and you're trying to buy railroads to go with those towns. There was this game, and I've looked it up and I've tried to find it on Macintosh, that my buddy had when I was like in 3rd or 4th grade, and it was an economy game, and you tried to like buy the paper mill, and then you'd buy the forest to do the paper mill. You tried to monopolize the whole thing, and the whole time you were buying and selling stocks. That game fascinated me for months.
What was it called?
I can't find it. I don't remember. I know the mechanisms,
Oh, no.
and I know it was on a Mac. Apple was with the Apple IIe or whatever that was.
Huh.
But I cannot find the name of the game. I went down the Google hole for like 20 minutes trying to look up that game, and I could not find it. But
Well, maybe we will have a listener out there who will. It'll spark something with them, and
that would be
they'll tell us what it
amazing
is.
because that game was so much fun for me as a kid. But regardless, this is kind of that same thing. There's resources up there. You're trying to sell high and then buy low, and you're trying to buy these towns. You're trying to then there's an auction mechanism that's a lot of fun, and there's a little strategy that goes in there because you can get the railroads when everybody's poor. You can get the railroads for cheaper. At the end of the game, the railroads are going for obscene amounts of money compared to the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
So when do you go into those auctions and when do you work that? And it also has a little defensive element because if you let somebody, I ran away with the game the time we just played last, and that was because I was able to buy up towns. I just kept buying towns over and over and over again. I got a card that helped me buy towns for one less resource than it originally, and it allowed me
Real
to just-
estate tycoon.
Yeah, I was kind of a real estate tycoon there. So, but it worked out great, and I love that game. My only complaint that I would say is that there's no real easy ending mechanism. It's when you run out of towns or you run out of railroads. But if everybody focuses on the buying and selling on the resources side, the
Yeah, it
game
can
can
get a bit
grind
long.
on for a while.
Yeah.
And that's our own fault. We were all really focusing on buying buildings and buying the resources and amassing money. But game went a little longer than I thought it would.
I think that might be. Honestly, because so I can tell you, having been in that game, that I wasn't focused on that. I actually was trying to push forward with the railroads and those kind of things.
Yeah.
And I think that ended up hurting me because
Yeah.
I was like, I see this game's taking a long time, so I was trying to push towards that, but you guys weren't having it, and then I think that ended up hurting me. I think that messed up my my performance in the game, to be honest with you.
And we didn't actually go through all the railroads. We ended up with going through all the towns, right? Wasn't that it?
We did, but we only had 2 railroads left too.
So
we were
we had-
very close on
And we
both.
had bought all the buildings. We had pretty much
the buildings
maxed.
were bought.
We had maxed out the game essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I enjoyed it thoroughly. It's a fun play. I won't call it a fast play, but it definitely was a fun one for me. How about you guys?
Oh, I liked it. It could be quicker, like you said. I mean, I think it's once you kind of wrap your head around the game and you understand that that's how you get to the end game. The more it'll reward more plays, I think.
Agreed.
But yeah, I like it. It's not one of my favorite games. I really enjoy it. And I wouldn't turn it down. But it's not necessarily one that I'm always going to say, hey guys, I'm not going to bring it and necessarily try to push it to the table personally. So, Kathy?
Totally get it.
I think that's kind of how I feel about it too. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it either. I enjoyed it, but I don't think I would gravitate toward it.
Yeah, which it's funny because that this game was, this and Wingspan were the hotness at Geekaway to the West for sure.
They were hard to find for sure.
Yeah. But and it is good. It's not that it's not a good game. It's just doesn't really hit my wheelhouse as well as some others do.
Totally get that.
One. It is a good one. Well, I have been playing. Let me talk about Dinosaur Island first. Dinosaur Island is a big game. It's a kind of a sprawling, heavier strategy game where you are building a dinosaur park. So think Jurassic Park, and actually that's to me it's the great one of the greatest things about this game is that it does not have the Jurassic Park IP. They don't have it licensed that way, but everything in this game winks and nods towards Jurassic Park, right? So I mean, they're not making any bones about the fact that that's what this game is based on. It's a 1 to 4 player game. It does have a solo mode. It's from Pandasaurus Games, and Jonathan Gilmour and Brian Lewis are the designers. And like I said, it is quite heavy. It took a long time for me to just learn how to play this game. In fact, I played through it solo as part of my learning process. And the second time I went to play it, it still just kind of took a while for me to wrap my head back around it. And it's pretty fiddly too. So what's interesting is there's a lot of really good stuff in it. There are 2 separate worker placement phases in the game. For every round, you're going to be going through 2 separate worker placement phases, and then there's just some resource management and some kind of action selection-y type of stuff. I mean, it's just kind of all over the map. Once you learn it and wrap your head around it, it makes sense and it flows pretty well, but it still takes quite a while to get to that point. I love the theme. It's, like I said, Jurassic Park in pretty much every way. It's actually way better. There's a Jurassic Park game out there right now. It was by Ravensburger, I think, and it's terrible. That game is horrible. But the game that it was not licensed is great. So go figure that one out.
Yeah. Is that one a Target exclusive as well? The one that's licensed?
No, it's not. It's at Miniature Market and other places, I think.
Oh, okay.
But it's just not very good. I've seen no good press about that at all. This is also a game where there are a lot of different strategies that you can pursue, and they all seem pretty well balanced, which is for such a sprawling kind of so many things that you can do to kind of gain points type of deal. That's pretty impressive to me. There's a really cool thing in this game though, where you're kind of balancing a threat level, because you're building dinosaurs. You're building dinosaurs. That was a joke when we were playing too, right, Kathy? Is that
exactly.
We're not building dinosaurs. What are we doing? We're not cloning. You're genetically creating
dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Playing God.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. So as you're creating dinosaurs, the threat level of your part goes up, right? Because if they're dinosaurs. So you have to balance that with keeping your security level up to a certain point. And then there's also an excitement level that has something to do with kind of how many guests that you end up drawing out or visitors that you draw out of a bag. It's just so much going on. But I really did like it. The setup and the teardown of this game are a huge pain in the butt. Huge pain in the butt. It just takes forever. And I keep talking about it like there's all these negatives, but honestly, at the end of the day, it's a pretty good game. I enjoyed it.
So did I.
I honestly think that the negatives that I've been talking about will keep it from getting to the table very much. But yeah, every time I've played it, I've had a lot of fun. Just something about that theme and making dinosaurs and you're hiring these specialists to give you special abilities and break the rules, and you're rolling dice and you're drafting dice, and there's so many things about it that are good. They're just really fun. Kathy, I know you played it with me. What'd you think of it?
I really liked it too, but I think I need to play it again because my experience with the first game, I kept drawing what do they call the thugs out of the bag that kept
the hooligans.
The hooligans. And I was the only one drawing them, and it kept putting me further and further behind. And Ryan and David were just drawing guests, and that's all they were getting, and it was really helping them and giving them money. And I couldn't seem to get past that. I kept drawing those stupid hooligans.
Yeah, you draw these meeples out of a bag, and they're two different colors, and there's more of the good ones, which are the guests, and then there's another color ones that are, I think it's like yellow and pink or something like that.
Orange,
yeah. And the hooligans, the bad ones, I mean, we were getting so lucky with that. But that's how you make your money, and that's how you score a lot of your points. And when you weren't drawing well, I mean, that had a huge effect on your game.
I was behind in money, I was behind in points, and I just couldn't get my engine going good.
But it is fun. There's a lot of variability. There's variability in setup. There's variability in how cards come out and how specialists come out and how dinosaurs come out. It's a lot of fun. It's pretty good. So that's Dinosaur Island. Kathy, you got anything else for us?
Sure. I have Space Base. I really like Space Base. This is a great game. John D. Clare is the designer. It's a great engine builder. It's definitely in my wheelhouse. I enjoyed the first time I played it. I was like, wow, I have to buy this game. I love this game. Scales well. I've played it 2-player and 4-player, and I think it plays well at both. Basically what you're doing is you have a board in front of you that is numbered 1 through 12, and you have 12 beginner cards, basically, that are your beginner space stations that give you actions to do whenever you roll that number. And then you have the ability to, as you're earning money, you are able to buy better and more powerful space stations that you can replace from your beginners and put those in its place. And then what you do is you take your beginning stations and you tuck them under your board, and that gives you an action that you can do when you're not the active player. So the best thing to do and when you're building your engine is to buy a lot and make sure that you have a lot of options when it's not your turn, and that gives you the opportunity to really get your engine going very quickly. I really love this game. I don't always win, but I always love playing. I don't care if I'm last place. I still had a great time playing it.
Yeah.
So the cards can be a little fiddly since you're picking them up and tucking them under the board, and the board could move and it could get a little bit messy. But really, it didn't bother me at all because I enjoyed the game so much that was a minor thing. But the main thing about this game is it feels like a puzzle. And I love puzzles and playing games that make it feel like a puzzle. To maximize your engine, it's really great when you are building your combos and everything seems to be working the way you want it to when you're rolling the dice and getting it every time. It can really work out well. So that is Space Base.
Yeah, Space Base is fun. I've played this with both of you, actually. Mm-hmm. Don't think we've all three played it together, but yeah, this one's pretty cool. You're right, Kathy. I don't know if I'd call it feeling clever when something like that happens, but yeah, it's definitely, it gives you some of those, jump up in the air moments, especially if you've built some crazy engine that triggers just a ridiculous amount of stuff when somebody rolls, especially when it's a number that doesn't get rolled very often, like an 11 or a 10 or a 12 or something like that.
Right.
And it hits and it just completely turns your game around. Yeah, that can be a lot of fun. But I have to kind of disagree with you a little bit I agree with you that the cards can be fiddly, but I wouldn't call it a small thing. I don't know why, but that bothers me when I'm playing this game. Yeah, once you're trying to put more than one card tucked underneath one of the numbers, you've upgraded a single number 2 or 3 different times. Oh, that gets under my skin because it just never works right sliding those things under there. I ended up pushing them underneath the board, then I got to lift the whole board out of the way, and then you accidentally knock over where your cubes were, and you got to remember where they were. I don't like that. I think that could have. I don't know how you would do it differently. Maybe just set them above the board. maybe that's what I'll start doing from now on. Jerry, what did you think of this one?
No, I did enjoy it. It was fun, and it was fun to be able to have the right setup. And when you're right, when those rare numbers hit, and you're able to like trigger 3 or 4 different things at once, and you're like, I am a genius. I always attribute it to myself, by the way, not the game. Okay, so I am a genius. But yeah, it was a fun game, and I would definitely play it again. I didn't really have any complaints. I did notice the card thing as well, but I mean, I have trouble with a lot of smaller devices anyway because I'm kind of a freaky big guy. So I just make do whenever I do that.
Yeah. No, I've actually played in 2 games of this now where the "You Win" card has come up and has actually been purchased by someone, but I've yet to see someone actually win with that card.
Pull it off, yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty cool though. It's a fun game.
It is a fun game. Dave, you got any other board games you're playing, buddy?
Nope, I don't play board games. I'm sorry. I'm 12 years old. No, we've actually all been playing Chronicles of Crime.
Chronicles of Crime.
Yeah, which is a 1 to 4 player game, which, I don't know, I guess you could... I'm trying to imagine playing it solo, but I can't.
It would be boring, I think.
Because I like asking questions like, is there something else we're missing, guys?
Well, yeah, exactly. Anyway, this is from Lucky Duck Games, and it's designed by David and
well done. Way
That
to
guy.
go, buddy.
Sorry, David. I like your first name. It's really awesome. But so this is a game where you have a main board and you have a bunch of little I guess they're locations is what they are that you're gonna as throughout the course of the game set around. And this is a very tech heavy game. It requires an app that you download for free, right? Once you purchase the game, and it's a beautiful game. So how it kind of works is you will pick a scenario from the app, and it will give you kind of your starting setup, your starting location, which is usually Scotland Yard, right? This is kind of a English deal, a British deal. And you'll have like a police chief that you can talk to, and once you start this whole deal, it'll kind of give you the setup, right? It'll give you the scenario, tell you what the case you're trying to solve. Typically, it's like somebody got murdered or somebody's kidnapped or this, that, or the other thing. You will spend the game basically scanning QR codes. That's really
That's what you do.
The meat of what you're doing as far as tangible things throughout the course of this game. And that will unlock other locations, other people, clues, and different things. And this is all done with this main board, location mats, and cards, right? And then the app. That's the whole thing. And it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it.
Yeah, we've had a blast playing it. The first time we played, we had 4 people, and then the last couple times we played has just been the 3 of us, right? And I think that's kind of the sweet spot is 3. It kind of feels that way to me, because you've got a few different people. There's a really cool thing going on in this where you'll get to a crime scene and you'll use whatever device that you have to kind of virtually look around the crime scene and describe what you see. One player will do that, and the other players are basically, you can write things down or start pulling cards out of a deck that kind of match items and things that the person is describing. And to me, that's one of the most fun parts of it. Yeah. That, and of course, trying to crack the case, right?
Yes.
But I think that's where having 3 people, to me, is kind of the way to go, because I like that whole thing of, hey, I see I see the victim on the ground and they're surrounded by this, and I also see this, and I just think that's cool. Whether you're the one looking at it or you're the one who's listening to it, there's just a really cool dynamic there that I think would be lost. It would work good with 2, but I don't know. I just feel like solo just would not be as engaging to me.
The other thing I'd say is that there's enough moving parts. There's enough, even we've only done an easy and a medium. Do we even do a medium?
No,
we didn't. They both easy?
They were both easy.
Yeah.
Both
easy.
So
he only did both easy, and we succeeded at one, we failed at the other. But I think part of that is if you try to do this by yourself, or even as a 2-player, you can't keep track of all the locations, all the people you have to talk to, all the things you have to juggle and keep in your mind.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could be really meticulous and write it down, but
maybe if you're not
almost more-
tired, that would be helpful too. I was kind of, that's what I'm chalking it up to. I was tired.
Oh, is that what we're gonna go with?
That's
It
what
was
we're
the
going
last
with. I
game
like
we played,
that.
and we were very tired. Yeah,
Yeah, if you remember, that's why we chose an easy one, because we were
that's why
short
we
on
chose
time.
an easy one, and then still failed it. Bad,
I still lost, yeah.
bad. Wasn't even close. They laughed at us. I think the app just started laughing, just ha 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 ha, like the Joker.
It automatically shut down and the tablet started smoking. It
It did. It
was
did.
bad.
We're embarrassed for you. That's what it basically said. So
You need to return this game to the store immediately.
please, you're not smart enough for this game. No, seriously, it's not bad though. It's just a matter of deduction. I think what ended up in the one scenario we went through is that we ended up not going a place thinking we already had the answer because we were running out of time. And that place probably had something to do with what we needed.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Oh, I
And we
think
didn't-
I think it definitely did.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I've kind of run that down in my head too. So I'd like another crack at that scenario.
Oh, we will. We will.
So I heard from somewhere that there's something you can do that I don't think that we did, and all the times that we've played. Did you know that you can have someone talk about themselves? So you can scan the person and then scan them again and have them tell you something about themselves.
I did not.
We have
No.
never tried that.
We've never tried that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Very interesting. So I think we should try that because you never know. We could find out something pretty important.
Did
We
you
should
look
try
up
that.
the answer to our one scenario and you're trying to lead us
I
along?
did not. No, I did not. I actually heard it on another podcast. They were talking about the
Oh,
game,
okay.
and they said that they could talk, that they talk to themselves, and I was like, "You can what?"
Oh, that would have been helpful. That would have been helpful
Yeah.
in a couple of places. So, yeah, I definitely want another crack at that.
Yeah. So apparently, the app that we're talking about, as you're doing scanning these crime scenes, there's an option in there of using a actual VR headset and having like the 3D look and that kind of thing. We have not done that. We have not tried that yet, and I don't know honestly if I could. My vision is not great, and if I try to hold things up too close to my face, it kind of becomes.
We're just using a rather large tablet.
Yeah, and
is
I
what
think that
we're
works
using.
great.
I think it does
works
too.
really
It gives us
well.
more of a
Yes.
chance to be able to see it. Because you're right. If it was up in your face, you'd probably miss stuff, just because it's too close.
I think I would. But
I know
yeah.
I would.
But I do love the fact that the app has music that it plays in the background. So I feel like they've done a really good job in this game of trying to immerse you into the theme and what you're doing.
sure.
I feel like that was a huge success for this game. It really does kind of feel like the TV crime dramas, right? Where you're
Yeah.
because when I watch those kinds of shows, I don't really watch them anymore. But when I used to watch those shows, that was kind of the fun, is trying to figure out how to solve the case before the show spoils it for you, right? Before
It's always
Right.
the first person who they talk to.
It is. They only talk to him for 3 seconds.
That's the one. It's always
Yeah.
that guy.
It's
And the
that
first
guy.
one that they arrest, it's never them.
Never
No,
them.
no.
Never ever.
But that's kind of what it feels like. So if you like that kind of stuff, I feel like this is a game that you will enjoy. Now, having said that, this game does have some. It's very cartoony, but there's some dark themes. There's some sort of dark imagery in this too. When you look around crime scenes, and a couple of them, there's you see the dead body laying there on the ground, right? So the reason I bring that up is if that would bother you, then that's something I would say probably stay away from this one, right?
For sure. Yeah.
But yeah, other than that, I think this is kind of a home run. I think we're all kind of looking forward to when we can play this one again. Yeah.
For sure.
Definitely.
So we may check back with this one, as we get further into the campaign. And apparently there's an expansion for it already that I'm kind of anxious to get my hands on.
Nice.
But expansions is a talk for another day. So that is Chronicles of Crime. So it's interesting that Chronicles of Crime actually leads us very nicely into our topic we wanted to talk about for a little bit in episode number 1 here, and that is technology in board games. So I had just told you how much I enjoyed Chronicles of Crime and how well the app was implemented and that kind of thing. But if I'm being honest, as a general rule, technology is not something that I am crazy about in board games, and I have some interesting reasons, which I will get into here shortly. Do you all agree or disagree with that?
I think it kind of depends on the game, really. Sometimes with Chronicles of Crime, I really like the whole, I mean, it pretty much you have to have the app to play, but I really enjoyed it, and I thought they did it well, and it immersed itself into the game kind of seamlessly. Like it was meant to be for that type of scenario. I loved it. But then there's other ones that include technology that I'm like, I don't know if it was really needed. Kind of enjoy the analog feel,
like
and
they
not
shoehorned it in there.
Yeah, like just to have the app, and I don't know if that's necessarily needed in every scenario.
Right.
Yeah, I can say that I pretty much want to hate all of those. Although I must say that I was surprisingly, like, I really liked Chronicles of Crime, the way they instituted it. But, you know, most of the time when I want to play board games, I want to be, you know, engaged playing the old school board games. I want to be moving the pips around. I want to be playing with everything, and I want to be in front of people.
Okay, so you like the toy factor and you like the social aspect of it.
I do. Yeah. Now, I say that, and then for the most part, I don't play any board games via apps or like anything like that. But at the same time, I really enjoy Star Realms campaign mode. I downloaded that on a whim on my phone one day, and I got hooked. Yeah. That's a real nice, challenging game. So
I've played that too, and it is pretty fun. But honestly, I don't play very much, and that is one of the very few board game apps that I have played. And
me too.
I wouldn't say that I actively avoid them, but maybe, I don't know, maybe I do. Maybe I do actively avoid them. There's so many of them that are coming out now these ports for, I mean, the Nintendo Switch, for example. Holy cow.
Yeah.
The number of board games that they're now available on Switch and I'm sure other consoles as well, and Steam and all these things. I don't know. I kind of feel like this harkens back to, for me. I used to play a lot of video games. Mm-hmm. I hardly play video games at all anymore. And honestly, I can kind of pinpoint when I stopped. And when I stopped playing video games is when it all went on the internet. Okay?
Yeah.
So when I played games before, it was with people. And when you wanted to play multiplayer, you were in the same room, looking at the same screen, and you got to throw your controller at each other when you got mad, and you had a blast.
Yeah.
And when they took that away from me, I just kind of fell away from it.
In my college dorm room, we had an official GoldenEye trophy. We had a Mario Kart trophy, and that went around the different hallways, and we had 4-player playoffs, and we even had once a semester or so, we would play like 32 versus 32 and then run it down to the number one GoldenEye champion.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But it was a lot of, we were in the same room. Yeah, we were playing video games, but we were there. We were socializing. We were calling each other names. We were doing everything that, you do.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that's where my, I guess that's my fear. There's a little bit of a concern there that at some point, that's kind of the way everything's going to go. They're going to make everything digital. It's all going to be online, and that's how you're going to game. And I really hope that's not the case. Because again, it's, to me, I'm an introvert. Mm-hmm. By nature, I am an introvert, and board games are a social activity that I actively pursue because I don't know. That's my social outlet.
Well, I agree with you, because that we're less connected than we ever been in a highly connected world,
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's why it was on my heart to create a board game group, because once you get out of college, heck, for some people, once you get out of high school, I mean, you all go your own different ways. You're all pursuing your careers and building families and having children, and the number of friends for Americans has just dropped off substantially, and your support groups have dropped off
That's right. Facebook friends don't count.
They don't count. If I were to go through and eliminate all my Facebook friends I haven't had a face-to-face conversation with, or even a telephone conversation with in the last, let's just say, a year, I would be down to like 15, 20 people.
Yeah,
and
that many. Wow, not me.
Well, I'm counting family too. So.
Oh, okay.
So, but no, that's it. Just so the interaction, the face-to-face that we're able to do with board games, I also think that's probably why board games are having kind of a renaissance right now, you know, because this is a chance for people to connect in a way outside of social media. I mean, if you look at it, I mean, they're growing leaps and bounds. This niche is growing a lot. So
It is.
People are looking for a way to connect again.
to connect in person.
Right.
So while they might have the apps out there and there's probably some advantages to them, I don't think in the board game community is going to go, oh, well, now we can just go 100% online. I don't think that's, I know I get the fear, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. I mean, I know it won't
I hope
for me.
you're right. I hope
Me
you're
too.
You
right.
know?
Well, because that's just, I mean, I just see the trends.
Yeah, no, I see it.
And it seems to be just kind of going lockstep. Boom, boom, boom. This is
Yeah.
exactly what video games did, and now that's kind of what they're trying to do. Because, I mean, like Kathy said, I feel like they're kind of trying to push, and they're trying to, even when it doesn't really belong there, it's like, well, we got to put technology in it because that's what everybody wants. That's what,
Right.
And
Yeah.
I don't really know that that's what everybody's screaming for, but it seems like that's what they're giving.
That's
us.
what they think they're screaming for. Yeah.
Yeah. I know, I totally get that. But now, I'll give you a positive that I've thought of, and I can see my kids love their Switch. And sometimes some of these board games, the rules are still a little too complicated for my 6-year-old or my 7-year-old to kind of grasp. And if the rules can kind of be run in the background and
Sure.
for them, and they can just enjoy the aspect of the game, it could be kind of a gateway drug into, you know, the actual board games.
Well, and there's also the fact that some of these are really kind of groundbreaking in what they're doing and how they're bringing Chronicles of Crime, perfect example.
Exactly.
There's another one called Anubis, which has some of the same things with Chronicles of Crime, but it's more heavily based on that VR experience where somebody's looking at a situation and they're describing it to their teammates, and their teammates kind of have to build this maze based on what is being described to them by the other players.
That sounds interesting.
And then there's the like Mansions of Madness, where the GM part of it, the game master part of it, is completely taken away. So you don't have to have that one player that's all they do is kind of run the game, and everybody else gets to play. So I mean, there's some great things about it, but yeah, I just still have my concerns.
No, I totally get that. I did appreciate Mansions having the built-in GM. That was
Yeah.
nice when we played that with the group, because not having to have somebody just sit off to the side and basically just read text to you and tell you where monsters are popping out. And, you know, I wouldn't mind doing that, but it's better when everybody can be engaged.
Yeah,
for
that's
sure.
a big deal. Yeah, then everybody gets to play.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Well, I'm not really a big fan of the apps per se either. I think the only app that I've actually played a game app is Onirim. I'm not sure why I decided to download it, but I downloaded it one day. Oh, I know why, because it was
Well, that's a solo
free.
game anyway, right?
That's true. That's true. But it was something to have to be able to play a board game when I'm sitting in line somewhere or whatever to do. But
Sure.
Generally, I'm not a big fan of the game apps. I don't usually download those. I rather play an actual board game. However, I do play, not so much recently, but for quite a while I was playing on a website called Bois de Jeu. I think that's how you pronounce it. They're board games that you can play, and it's not real time. It's turn-based, and you can just take your turn and then wait for the person that you're playing to take their turn, and it could be 5 minutes later or it could be 3 days later. And the only games that I actually played on there was Trajan and Castles of Burgundy. And the reason why I played those two games is because I really liked them. I didn't get an opportunity to play them very often, but I wanted to get good at it. So I played it just to learn strategy, figure out the best way to do, try different strategies, see if this works better or that works better, and figure out the ways that I want to play. So when I did get a chance to play, that I would be better at the game. Because as much as I love those games, I didn't seem to be really good at them. So I just wanted to try to get better. But that's really the only website that I know. I think there's some other websites that you can play board games, but I've never tried those. Have you guys ever tried them?
I've never tried any of the websites, but I can say I really love Scythe. And when Scythe came out with a video game, I went ahead and tried to hop on that. And they do the similar thing where you have 24 hours to play your move, essentially, and then it passes to the next player. My only problem was the people I was playing with, I think Dave was one of them for a little bit, wasn't actually taking his turns. And so the game would just expire.
I know
No,
you're not talking
David?
about me, though. Some other David.
No, probably some other David. I apologize. Yeah, no, got to be somebody else. But that idea is good. It's just you've got to have people that are willing to get in there once a day and do their moves, or agree upon. We sit down at 7 p.m. because if he was available to do his move right away, we could bounce it back and forth. And I guess if we hopped on like a Google Chat or a Hangout or whatever they're called, that would probably be a fairly close way to be able to connect. And
yeah,
we could bust through a game pretty quickly.
You bring out a good point, Jerry, because when I was playing those games, if I was waiting a day or two for someone to take their turn, you kind of forget where your strategy was. And especially I would play like 4 or 5 games at a time. And I would be like, okay, on this game, I'm playing this way. And this game, I'm playing this way. And I would forget where I was at. And it would end up kind of messing your drive up a little bit. So you're not really able to have a good flow of turns.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah, I've actually heard people talk about games that they are playing in this type of realm, this turn-based type of deal, that, you know, on these bigger games, these heavier games, that they have single games that are going on like 3-4 months now that still aren't finished. And I'm like, why even bother?
Yeah, that's too long.
That is too long.
You get to the point where you don't even care anymore at that point.
So so there's our thoughts kind of on technology and how it is affecting and kind of penetrating the hobby board game world. And we're interested to know what you guys think. If you're listening and you have some thoughts on this, you can throw us an email at boardtogethergames@gmail.com and just kind of let us know what you think. We'd love to kind of see what your thoughts are in technology and board games. And that is going to wrap it up for episode 1 of the Board Together Games podcast. We really hope that you have enjoyed listening to this. And if you have, obviously the best thing that you can do is, subscribe to the podcast, right? And, if you're able to, just give us a really quick 5-star rating on whatever app you're listening. And that would be really beneficial in getting the word out there and getting the word spread about this show. And the other ways that you can contact us are on our website, boardtogethergames.com. We are on Facebook and Twitter, and the handle for those is @BoardTogether. It's BOARD, the number 2, and then Gether, GETHER. And we also have the YouTube channel, which is still there. And if you want to go back and look at some of our old reviews we've done of some board games, you can do that. Just go to youtube.com and search for Board Together Games. That would be awesome. And if you feel so inclined, share this content with your friends. That would be another really good way of letting people know that we are out here. So thanks once again for listening, everybody. And as always, if you're bored together,
Board together.
We will see you next time.